myself introduced recently, what I get from the introduction is that I'm old and I can't keep a job. Yeah. But I've learned a few things along the way, and what I wanted to do today was to share with you why I think this issue of diversity, particularly gender diversity, which is near and dear to my heart, is something that's so important and something that all of us in this room need to take to heart and take seriously and make sure that we are advocating for it in the companies that we work in and as we make our way through this exciting, growing industry that we're in. So I'm going to spend time talking to you about three things. One is why gender diversity is important to you. And this is directed mostly to the women in the room, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The second thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is why gender diversity, and diversity just generally speaking, is important to all the businesses that we work for, that we found, that we do business with as consumers. And the last thing is why it is so important for this whole industry, the clean tech industry, and for all of us to help green the planet up, why it's important that women are involved and engaged, because we can really make a difference. There we go. So it might or might not surprise most of you in the room to know that 4 in 10 of us are the primary breadwinner for our families. Doesn't get much more personal than that. And those of you who are just starting out in your careers, it might be that you're the primary breadwinner for your own household right now, but as you go down through your life, if you get married, you might find yourself in that position. I would also tell you that 4 in 10 are the primary breadwinners, but I would bet most of you that work here today that are employed, your household could probably not sustain the loss of your income and maintain the same level or standard of living. You couldn't educate your children in the way you wanted to educate them. There are a lot of things that the loss of income, or let's say not getting paid what you're worth in the workplace, can impact you very personally on a financial level. And I think, we talk longingly about the days when people could stay home with their children and all of that kind of thing. And yes, that there are some people who have that option and that chance in their life. But there are some people like me who wanted to have a family and to have a job because I had something I wanted to contribute to the world. And as a consequence of a lot of us wanting to have both of those opportunities in our lives, we now find this dynamic where 4 in 10 of us are a major, if not the primary contributor in our household. Doesn't really get much more personal than that, right? So it's really important that women and women's issues are represented in the workplace and that we're advocating for ourselves. And here's the other reality that we find as we go out and survey women and find out what's going on in our households out there, is that almost 73% of us pretty much run our households, right? We make the day-to-day decisions. And we're managing the money, we're making a lot of decisions. It's a really important thing, not only for companies who sell to us to know, but for us to think of ourselves in that capacity in our homes and in the things that we're doing in the lives that we lead. So why are these two things so important, and why does this matter to you? And more importantly, what should you go do about it tomorrow morning at work, right? So what can you actually walk out of here and think about? So I think about two things. One is those of you who are just starting your career, or those of you who are in the middle of your careers, are you paying attention to the fact that are you being paid what you're worth, right? Are you asking for you to be recognized for the contribution that you're making, and are you making what you're worth in the workplace? I will tell you, I've interviewed a lot of people, managed a lot of people over my career, and I will tell you, hands down, the men are more comfortable talking about money and asking for what they believe they're worth. Even if the answer is no, they ask. Women are less likely in a job interview to ask me what it pays, what the perks are, what the career advancement possibilities are, what the paths are. Women want to know about the job and how they can contribute, but they fail frequently to ask about what does it pay, what's the promotional opportunity for me, et cetera. And that's important for all of you. It's important because it makes a difference in terms of what you can contribute to your own family household situation and what you might be able to do later in life that you have dreams about, like saving money to found a company, or to be a philanthropist and to donate to causes that are important to you. It's really important. The second thing is, when you're in your workplace day to day, the news is good right now. Those of you who are just graduating from school or just about to graduate from school, the pay gap is narrowing for those who are just entering the workforce. But I will tell you that we still see that it diverges when women decide to actually have families and go off and engage in another part of their life in addition to their work life. And what happens is we still see that there is what they might call it a mommy gap or a mommy penalty, where people are assuming that because you're having children and because you're engaged in that part of your life as well as your work life, that somehow you're not contributing as much. So one of the things that we can all do is we go into the workplace on a daily basis when we're sitting in meetings. Here's a conversation that I overheard, and one that some of you will have an opportunity to participate in, and you need to speak up on behalf of the other women in your organization. This was 2 companies ago. We're sitting in a meeting and someone says, we'll call her Susie for lack of a better name. We'll say we're sitting around talking about who should be promoted to manager. Susie would be a great candidate. She's got 5 years experience in the business. She really knows her customers. She is excellent and well respected by her peers. Someone sitting next to me says, but Susie just got married, and I think I heard her say that they might want to stay here, so she's not open to moving, and I think she's going to have kids pretty soon, and I don't know if she'd really want that job. If you're a woman and you're sitting at that table, it's really important for you to lean forward when you hear things like that and say, let's ask Susie. Let's ask Susie what she wants to do, right? And it's just those assumptions. Those same conversations don't happen about the guys, and I hear I'm channeling my mother here a little bit, I would have to say, because she used to say to me, you need to pay attention to these things. They're happening, don't be naive. And I used to say, oh, Mom, that doesn't happen in the workplace anymore. That stuff doesn't happen. And I remember calling her after that meeting and saying, oh, yeah, it does happen. And maybe I should start taking some of your other advice. So diversity is important to all of you in this room. Because it really does make a difference what women are contributing to the household. It's not an optional either or. Really think about that when you're out looking for a job, founding a company, creating jobs for other people. It's really important to think about why this diversity matters to you on a personal basis. But not just mattering to you on a personal basis, it also matters to the companies that you work for. So there have been a lot of studies. One of my favorite ones is the one that talks about 53% higher return on equity by companies that have 3 or more women on their board. And statistically, you can actually prove this, right? You can actually go and look at publicly traded companies, see how many women they have on their boards. There are a lot of other studies that suggest that diversity, generally speaking, whether it's gender diversity, racial diversity, age diversity, whatever kind of diversity you want to talk about, if you have more perspective sitting around the table, you can come up with a better solution. You can come up with better ideas. And this is a really, really important thing for those of you who are employing people out there. It's important to have a lot of perspectives at the table, helping you make decisions, helping you come up with products, helping you figure out how you're actually going to sell to that customer downstream, which we'll talk about in a minute. So a couple of things about this particular aspect of why it's important to your companies. It is important to your company because what happens is this, and this has happened in every technology company I've ever been in, and I'll actually talk a little bit about Enphase at this point. We love our technology, don't we, in the technology world, whether it's Cleantech or high tech. We love the gadget, what the gadget does. And that is a very technology, clean tech or high tech kind of point of view. So we sit around in a room and we talk about this great invention that we have at Enphase that we're revolutionizing residential solar with, which is a microinverter. And we love it. We think it's cool. And it is cool, by the way. And it does some really cool things. And there are some reasons that it does really cool things because of how we invert the power and how we do all these exciting things. And we can get in that place where we're so excited about our technology that we forget we actually have to sell to an end consumer. And you know what? I'm pretty sure most of the people who have solar on their house don't really care how power is inverted. What they care about is, by producing solar on my roof, what am I doing for the environment, and how much money am I saving, right? And if you don't have people sitting around the table who can say, yes, your technology is lovely, and it is beautiful, and it's a thing to behold, but what's in it for the consumer? What am I going to tell the husband and wife that are sitting across the table from me about why they should buy my technology instead of somebody else's technology because of what it will do for them? If you have a bunch of engineers sitting around the table and you have no other perspectives, no sales perspective, no marketing perspective, no finance perspective, you'll come up with a very lopsided solution. And the same thing is true if you're sitting around the table and it's all people who look the same. I've worked for a company that had all women on the executive team, and I've worked for companies that are largely male on their executive team. I will tell you, all women companies have the same problem that all men companies have, is that they don't have the perspective. So this is really important. But if you're going to participate in these companies, what you're going to need to make sure that you do or you think about is how you can stretch outside of your boundaries when you are faced with some of the situations that come up in the workplace. Because you might have to do things that you would not normally do. And so I'll tell this one short story of me having to do something that I'm not very comfortable doing. This was back in the days when I was at Storage Tech and we were sitting in a conference room. I was a relatively new manager, and my style is not to be autocratic and demanding and tell people what to do. But I had an employee who had decided that he had cracked the compensation code in the sales and was going to sell something that he shouldn't sell, that the company clearly didn't want him to sell, but it would advantage him personally and professionally significantly, but we wanted them to sell something else. We're sitting in a room, big mahogany table, me, other employee on the other side of the room, a couple of people that work for me, a couple of people that work with him. We're sitting there, and he's telling me how he's not going to do what I'm asking him to do. And this is one of those moments where I realize I am going to have to be the B word in public, right? I'm going to have to take a stand. I am going to have to make it very clear that he needs to do what I am telling him to do. And this is not my style. You can ask the other women from Enphase that are here. This is not how I typically operate. And at that moment, I looked at this guy across the table and I said, Ted, you will take that proposal that you gave the customer and you will retract it and you will propose what I have told you to propose. Are we clear? Which is not something you would ever hear from me in a situation like this. The room got quiet. I pushed away from the table. I stood up, I turned around, walked out the door, and I was shaking. And so what I did is I quickly went into the restroom, and I know all of you are thinking, and the story is she started to cry. No, I started to laugh. Because I had stretched myself to do something that I was not comfortable doing, and I had survived it, and by the way, earned some respect for it. So you're going to need to do things to help these companies understand why you're a valuable employee to them that might stretch you out of your comfort zone. So make sure you're looking out for those opportunities, and that when you feel a little nauseous about a situation, it means maybe you should lean in and try to stretch yourself beyond your normal boundaries. So that's why it's important to companies. It's important because it makes them more profitable. It makes us better as companies to contribute to society, to our shareholders, to all the different constituencies. But you know, this whole issue of women and in clean tech and sustainability, this is the third reason that diversity matters so much. When you do polls and studies, you find out that women care deeply about what's happening to the planet. Women care deeply about what will be left for their children. And women care a lot about the environment, and we need to help them figure out how they can take control of their energy footprint and how they can actually make sure that they're leaving a better place for their children and that they feel like they're able to actually do something for society. So I'm in the solar industry, and one of the things that we frequently think about is this end consumer that we're selling to. But if you look at it, the way we sell and the way we talk about solar and the way we talk about technology frequently appeals to guys. We talk about the solar panels and the inverters and what it's going to produce and how the energy is going to be produced on the roof, and instead of talking about things like, if you put solar on your roof, you might be able to reduce your electricity bill by $100 a month. Your electricity bill reduction, that $100, can then be put in a savings account to send your child to college, right? Or you're going to be creating a better future for your child by not having to frack or to do all of the things that are destroying our planet. Women care about these issues. And when you talk to women about if there has been a discussion about solar in their household, who initiated it? It's the woman that's initiating the conversation, supported by her husband, but frequently it's the woman that's thinking about that. But how often do we think about reaching out to women and engaging them in the marketing and selling we do? And then if you look at who would actually go do the research online and who would actually figure out whether or not they wanted to install a solar system, it's the woman largely that goes out and does that. And all of the statistics play out like this, that women are very involved in solar, but they're underrepresented in our thinking about marketing. And so for us to actually get adoption at the level that we need to get adoption to change the world, whether it's solar or wind or any of the other great technologies we've been talking about, we must appeal to the audience that thinks it's so important, which is women. And that's, in my mind, why diversity matters. It matters to all of you individually, it matters to the companies that you work for, and ultimately it matters to the success long-term of this industry. So we're in a great place. We need to make sure that we are moving forward together and that we're making the best of the opportunity that's in front of us. And we need to be a big part of it, and our voices need to be heard. So I'm so glad to see all of you out here, and I wish you all the best in your careers.